Never, ever, ever do these 3 things from 90 yards. We are at the Sonoma Valley short course here in California. It's the first hole, 91 yards on the button. And I want you, when you have this shot anywhere on the golf course, to be able to polish it off. Just like that. But if you do these things wrong, that will never happen. First things first, never, ever, ever back the ball up in your stance. When you start backing that ball up in your stance, what you're doing is you are shortening your margin of error. And for golf, we want the largest possible margin of error. Here's what happens as you back that ball up. You start getting steeper and steeper and steeper on your angle of attack. So many people back that ball up in their stance because you want to accomplish certain things. One, you want to hit the ball, golf ball, before the earth. So you start backing it up, thinking that will help me as the club is coming down, strike the golf ball first. 2, they want to spin the ball a lot so that it'll stop faster. And they think that hitting down on it will cause a lot more spin. Potentially, but again, the odds of striking it are shrinking the farther back the ball goes. And we want greater odds, not less odds. Especially if we don't practice 8 hours a day like professionals. So instead of continuing to move that ball back in your stance, like way back here, this is what would happen if you do this. Now, I can make good contact with it, but my consistency's not gonna be great because I'm taking my loft and shutting it down so it's gonna go long and it could go left easy. So instead of that, here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to move it back at all. I want you to move the ball forward. So let's say you're normally hitting it in the center of your stance. Move it up a little bit. And how much is a little bit? So here's the ball in the center of your stance right there, okay? Let's pretend that's your normal position where you feel comfortable. Here's how much I want you to move it. Right there. 1 finger. So you're here in the middle finger. I just want you to roll over that little finger right to that. That's how far. 1 finger width. For most people, that's all you need. That's how much more forward I want it than normal. So there you go. So there's normal. Let me go 1 finger width right there. Beautiful. That's where I want to be for this little 90-yard guy. You see, instead of trying to flight it in low with a ton of spin, which is good, and professionals can do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take it higher and softer. And the overall result will be better here because we have better odds striking the ball than getting that super steep angle of attack. So step 1 is don't back it up, move it up. The second thing that I see people do all the time, huge mistake is this. We get our setup pretty good, and then what a lot of people do is they put their hands forward, way forward. And they think that if your hands come forward, it's gonna produce the same thing as if you were to move the ball back. I mean, in theory, yeah, because people say you want your hands to be forward at impact, but you don't want your hands to be forward at address. What happens when you start pushing your hands forward at address, especially, well, with everything, is this. You start opening that face too much. And it gets this thing right here, this guy, the hosel. You start pushing your hands forward, it gets that hosel closer to the ball. And if you hit the hosel area, that's a shank. So we don't want that, right? And it's also doing the exact same thing as moving the ball back. When you move the ball back, your angle of attack gets real steep. Well, if you push your hands forward, it does the exact same thing and you're coming down. But now, with your hands forward, you're coming down with the hosel leading the way. And that's dangerous. I'm not even gonna attempt that shot because I don't wanna break anything here in studio. Just know this, when your hands get forward, the hosel is in the lead and the face is wide open. All right, you talk me into it. I'll do it a little bit. So I get my hands way forward and there you go. And luckily I didn't shank it, but it's way right and probably short more often than not. So that's not a great way to go either. Instead, that's right, you guessed it. I don't want the hands forward here. I want them back. Instead of this, center, even feel like they're a little back. If you start here, you're either gonna shank it or you're gonna stop because your body and brain knows that ain't right. So you're gonna do this and flip. Instead, start back here because then you have room to actually get your hands ahead and your hands can outrace the club head with your wedges a little bit. If you start a little bit back, then you can really race forward with your hands, thus causing you to have the greatest impact position in the world. But if you start here, you're gonna do this, or you're gonna be searching for your ball in somebody's swimming pool. And we don't want that either. So start with your hands center or even back a little bit would be really, really good. Well, let's see, I did. That's a high, buttery little cutter. I love that shot. Look at that, and it spun back a little bit. That's what we're looking for. And there's one more thing that we should never do, and unfortunately, a lot of people do it. This is what I want you to see is I have two exactly the same 60-degree wedges. One is a 4 degrees bounce and one is a 12-degree bounce. Which of the two do you think will fly lower? That's right, the 12-degree bounce. So when you have more bounce, then you have a couple things. One, you have more forgiveness hitting the ball because there's more area here for the bounce to engage with the turf versus less. You gotta be like right on the money with very little bounce. So super tight lies, you might want less bounce, but tee shots, tee boxes, whatever, most of the time fairways for most people, 12-degree or more bounce is better than less bounce. However, you should never use the club in the short game area that goes max distance. So although, yeah, I can hit my 60-degree 90 yards, it's not gonna produce for me the best results. So yes, I want a lot of bounce on this shot because I want the forgiveness, but I don't want to take a full swing. So I'm gonna go to a club that goes farther. So this is my 56-degree wedge with 8 degrees of bounce. So you never want to use max swing. Instead, take more club. And then you got to do this when you do that, otherwise it's not going to work. One is you can open the face slightly. So you just open that up a little bit so that 8-degree bounce goes to like 10, even better. And I'm taking yardage off of this distance when I open the face. So the 56 is a 105-yard shot for me, but I need 90. So I'm going to open the face. So that is one of the pieces that we need to do. And then the other thing is this, and this is critical. This is the critical piece. How much of a swing do I want with this? Let's say I want 3/4 swing, should go 90 yards, because at 105 I need like 15 yards off of this thing. Great. So that's 3/4 swing for me. And you know where you're at, right? But you're gonna take a 3/4 swing. Never, ever, ever take a 3/4 shot with a full stance, meaning the width of your feet. So this is my full swing width. I would never take a 3/4 swing with this width on my wedge, never. So I'm gonna go 3/4 swing equals 3/4 width. Well, there we go. That's what I want. 3/4 swing, 3/4 width. Here we go. Now, let's say you want an even more club. So here's a 52 with 8 degrees of bounce, and I would need to do a couple things. One is figure out what length of swing I would need. So doing all the setup things, great. I'm gonna go half swing now with the 52, because it's gonna go a little farther. So what do I need? Just remember, half swing, half width. So here's full width, well, here's like half width. There we go. 52, half swing, half width. Let's see what that produces. So it's easy to remember. Ball forward in your stance, hands center or back. It's easy. And then whatever length of swing I'm taking with the club that I choose, not the shortest club in my bag by any means, I take the equivalent half swing, 3/4 swing, 3/4 stance, half swing, half stance. You do those 3 things, your short 90-yard shots will transform forever. Love you guys. Good luck out there. See you next time.